Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels football recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you are checking us out on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our very own Miss Deana King. She is our football recruiting analyst. She is knee-deep in football recruiting every day of the year. And Deana, you have a fantastic series that we just launched on our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com, which, by the way, you can access for $8.33 a month because the articles are premium and all your stuff, for the most part, is premium, especially the Deana's Dandies, which is a message board thread where you throw lots of little nuggets in there, have a little bit of fun with it, and you can only access it if you are a subscriber to THI. Deana, we're looking at the class of 2022 with the dead period ending at the end of this month. Chaos will ensue in June, where the coaches can finally be face-to-face with recruits for the first time in 15 months. It's going to be an exciting time for us. It's going to be, for me, I'm actually most excited for these kids. They get to make decisions based on actually being face-to-face in front of the people who are going to coach them. So they're going to make better, more educated decisions. They're going to have more intel when they make them. And for the coaches, I'm excited for the same reasons for them, especially someone like Mack Brown in North Carolina. They haven't exactly cast a huge net. They have a very narrow recruiting pool they're going after. Relationships are going to be so hugely important. And now, which I think is their strength, relationships and getting kids in that building, they're going to have a chance to do that in June. So we're going to look at the different position groups of the main targets for the Tar Heels with everything explodes here in June. And in this podcast, we're going to begin with the class of 2022 running backs. We will do 6 podcasts in this series because you have 6 pieces. And we'll note that tight ends will be included in the wide receiver group. And we're not doing quarterbacks because we don't believe that there's a whole lot going on with respect to quarterback for the class of 2022. So let's get into it, Deana. The 2022 running backs, there are 4 kids we're going to feature here in this podcast, each of whom I think the staff would be quite pleased if they could get them to come to Chapel Hill. We're going to begin with Michael Allen, a 4-star running back from Rose High School, G.H. Rose High School in Greenville. He's the number 208 player in the Rivals 250. You've known Michael for a while. You did some stuff with him last year at a camp and maybe at a 7-on-7. I could be mistaken there. So once you kind of fill everybody in on Michael Allen, the kind of player he is, where things stand, and what you expect in June when things open up for Michael Allen and everybody else.
Michael has been to some of the camps. And he's all, and you being a baseball guy, he's a standout on the baseball diamond. So that could be a big factor in his decision. I mean, there's been some reports out that he may be able to be drafted or something. So he has hinted that he wants to play possibly both sports at the school that he's chosen and everything. But he had a really good sophomore year, and this year there was a lot of really high expectations in Rose with him coming back, and he got injured like in the second or third game. You know, he only had stats for 2 games. He had a little bit over 200 yards, was really off to a good start, but he did not get to finish the rest of the season due to a lower body. I'll use UNC terms, lower body injury. But I spoke to him a few weeks ago, and he's back out. He's actually playing baseball for Rose right now. His injury is he's back healthy. So he did attend the spring game at UNC and had a great time. He likes UNC. He's been to Carolina a lot. He's a speedy back. I mean, I don't like to compare, but you know, he's kind of in that Michael Carter frame, you know, a 5'9" kid with a lot of good speed, and he catches the ball out of the backfield really good. So he's in the process of setting up visits, and Carolina's been one of his top schools, even though he hasn't put out a top list. Carolina's in the hunt with South Carolina, NC State, Virginia Tech, I believe. So he'll be. He said Carolina will get one of his visits, but that has not been scheduled yet.
All four of the running backs that we're going to talk about here are all ranked in the Rivals 250. Michael Allen at 208 is the lowest rated of those kids. Quick question. Where is he on the priority scale for Carolina? We're only looking at four here, so they're all priorities to some degree. If he were to pop this summer, you think would they wait, or would they take it right away?
That's a good question, because I think the dilemma with them is that I think they feel very confident with all four of these kids. So him being an in-state, you kind of look at what Mac wants. He wants to clearly dominate the state of North Carolina. So he's an in-state kid. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of have an idea who they have, but Michael would clearly be really good at UNC if he decided to pick UNC. So it's just a lot to play out, and I don't know if there's going to be some pressure put on some of these kids to early commit or what, but we'll have to see that, with these visits and everything. And when you said earlier about you were happy for the kids, it's like opening the key and letting all the animals out of the zoo, coaches, players, both, because we've all felt like
us and media, because we get to cover all this.
We feel like we've been cooped up or something. So it's, like you said, it's going to be a very busy time the next few months.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, as we get ready to talk about the other three, is that Carolina right now, for the class 22, they're only looking at 10 to 14 kids that they're going to take. So how much of a priority is running back in terms of multiple numbers? It'll depend a lot on what happens to the group that's there now. I mean, obviously Ty Chandler will move on. Who else moves on? Does someone leave in August when they realize that they're fifth or sixth on the depth chart? And does Carolina respond in the class of 22 by taking another running back, multiple running backs as opposed to just one? Well, Marion Hampton is a four-star kid from Cleveland High School in Clayton, North Carolina. Of the four kids, by the way, two are from North Carolina. One is from Virginia, one is from Georgia. Hampton is the number 129 kid in the Rivals 250. I know you're a big fan of his. We're a big fan of all four of these kids, but we've talked a lot about in passing, where you would keep me up to date if it was all the text message about Marion Hampton this, Marion Hampton that. So what is going on with him? What do you like about his game, and what's happening with him beginning in June?
Well, Carolina fans will like this. He plays at Cleveland High School, and their colors are that baby blue.
Don't they have the Argyle too?
Yeah, they have Argyle on their helmets and stuff. So he like Michael Allen got hurt, and it was kind of a jinx for running backs. North Carolina, the top running backs, Camaro Edmonds, who signed with UNC, he also had injury issues. Marion, he got hurt like in the fifth, sixth game. He was really on a blistering pace. He had over 600 yards, and Cleveland was rolling. They actually rolled without him and got to the state championship game. That happened to be in Kenan Stadium. Mount Tabor defeated them, but it might have been a kind of a different outcome if Hampton, who is one of the nation's best, could have played. But he did have a lower leg injury, and that kind of knocked him out of playing the rest of the season. When I spoke to his head coach, Scott Riley, he was on schedule with rehab, doing really well. Kid's been at Carolina a lot. He's been to 2 open practices that was open to the public, and he attended the spring game. So that's 3 times that he's been on campus at UNC within the last month.
You don't have to have inside information to gauge that he's got considerable interest in Carolina. Kids that show up, and that's what's going to be fun, and I think easier for us, and for certainly for you, because you're so plugged in. Just keeping tabs on where kids go and how often they go there is so important when gathering recruiting information, and we haven't had that opportunity. I know that there were some kids that got to some football games last year because of some prior relationships they had and people who were fortunate enough to get tickets, but it's going to be different now with kids being able to visit. Really, as long as it's an open period, as often as they want. So 3 visits by Hampton, I think, says a lot. George Pettaway, 4-star running back from Suffolk, Virginia, the number 112 player in the class of 2022 in the Rivals 250. I had a chance to meet him, interview him late last June, when Jacob and I were up in Virginia Beach for a camp. We talked to Zach Rice, Tyshon Chapman, Tony Grimes. This was a few days before Tony committed, and 5 weeks before he decided he was going to enroll early, or a month before he decided he was going to enroll early. George Pettaway was unbelievably impressive to me. You mentioned Michael Carter and Michael Allen earlier. Pettaway has a little bit of Carter in him with his build and his break and the way he breaks out with his speed, but he looks even faster. He's certainly much higher rated than Carter was, and he's a kid that a lot of people want. So what is the latest with George Pettaway? What do you like about his game, and what is happening with him this June?
He's a 7.57 kid, so Mac wants to dominate the Carolina blueprint, recruiting blueprint from basically Maryland down to the northern Florida part, and
DC down to Jacksonville.
Basically. And he wants to do well in the Tidewater region, and he's already mining that. He's got several. He got Tony Grimes. He got Travion Stevenson. He's got Tayon Holloway, Ty Chapman. He's got a lot of offers out in that area. And George Pettaway, he is, I've seen the videos of you guys in his the camps and stuff. And Carolina has always been, he's always had something very positive to say. You got the Dre Bly factor. He's been to Carolina. He came down to several games this past fall. And so the interest is there. I think Carolina's in great shape with George Pettaway. Like you said, just depends on what Carolina wants to do regarding these positions. I mean, they still don't really know. We have an idea what they said they wanted, how many positions, around 14. They've got 4 already committed. So, yes, they will take a running back. They need to take a running back because that group is young. But I hate using the star, but everybody in front of these kids we're talking about, they were only Josh Henderson was a 4-star. Now I'm not talking about Ty Chandler because he will be gone by the time these kids step on campus. But you're talking about different types of kids. These are 4 4-stars, all in the Rivals 250.
Yeah.
So
they're recruiting on a different level, and that's not to diminish the kids that are there.
You can see it by the schools that they're recruiting against. George Pettaway, Penn State's always had really great luck recruiting in Virginia. Ohio State is starting to go to Virginia, and then
North Carolina
in Virginia, and then Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So,
but all 3, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, are hitting North Carolina pretty hard too.
Yeah.
And let's remember too, Michael Carter was a 3-star kid. Javante didn't have a rating when the state title game his senior year kicked off, and he had a 2-star rating 2 days later after he committed to Carolina. So the star ratings matter, but they don't matter. In this case, though, I think these kids are clearly high-end caliber stuff. When you look at Pettaway in person like I did, you don't have to, nobody has to tell you he's a four-star kid. You don't have to look up a bio to know this kid's got special skills. And again, I think whatever happens in that running back room in the next several months will determine how many running backs they take. And look, for the sake of discussion, Deana, if a Hampton and a Pettaway both want to commit, I have a hard time seeing the staff turn away one of those kids. Take them both. The way running backs turn out, look, if you could turn them out in 3 years and they're off to the league, that's good. That's what you want.
North Carolina proved that two backs can excel in their system, and they preserved them. You see so many times that a kid will be about worn out by the time his college year and maybe more apt to get injured. And let's admit, running backs' careers in the NFL are not very long.
Well, that's one reason I think why the 3-year plan with running backs is ideal. If they can create a culture in the program where running back, or honestly, quarterbacks and running backs are in and out in 3 years, that means that a lot of good stuff is happening. Damari Austin is another 4-star running back from College Park, Georgia, the number 178 player in the Rivals 250. I don't know as much about him, so I'm going to let you take it. Educate AJ and everybody listening about Damari Austin. We have not talked much about him when we're not doing these pods. So fill me in there, Ms. King.
Yeah, he a Georgia kid, so you know he's got a lot of SEC interest, and so there's Carolina is trying to get in that, continue to mine Georgia for kids too. Not heard a lot about him in UNC here lately. I know he did not come up to the spring game. So he, of all the four, I think maybe he is, on maybe the least likely. I believe the other three are more likely to pick Carolina. He has some officials set up, and it's not he has not confirmed a UNC visit because he's got a lot of schools, and so just my opinion, I think that he may be not as high on UNC as the other three are.
With the recruiting map being very important to Mac, he's talked with us about that multiple times, especially now with the proliferation of kids hitting the portal. The importance of getting kids in state and close. A lot of people consider the Tidewater area, North Carolina North, essentially. It's been like that forever. In fact, we've been running that top 25 series, the greatest 25 Tar Heels of all time in football. A lot of them come from the Tidewater area. So if you were to look at the preference here, given the fact that all four of these kids are really, really good, all four could be stars in college, wouldn't you say, though, that Allen, Hampton, and Pettaway might be a higher priority simply because a kid from Georgia comes in, doesn't work out right away, and boom, hits the portal, and then they got to go replace him right away through recruiting as well. Less likely a Pettaway, a Hampton, or an Allen would leave quickly through the portal.
I agree with you, and back to Virginia, I got to give our good friend Coach Dion Glover. I'm going to tell him he kind of trademarked this, the Tidewater Tar Heels.
Yeah,
I will never forget that when I went up to cover his son Tony's commitment to UNC. They started yelling Tidewater Tar Heels. That's a good rhyme there. But yeah, I agree. A kid that's homegrown, quote, would seem to stick around a program rather than a kid that's not as got ties to the region and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, AJ, I guess you've put me kind of on the spot about priority. Now, this is not North Carolina's. I have no idea what Coach Brown and Coach Porter, but I would think, in my opinion, I would think Amari Hampton is the top priority because He is an in-state kid. He's right in the backyard. He has been to UNC countless times. Then George Pettaway, he's from another area that's Carolina wants to dominate, and with the Virginia Tides and Dre and every, and then Michael Allen is an Eastern North Carolina, and we know how many great Carolina players have come from Eastern North Carolina, and he is like I said, a great baseball player, and Carolina has had some great UNC baseball tradition. And then Austin is fourth kind of on my list because he is from Georgia and he is the farthest away. So that's my Deana's take on that.
Yeah, that's the order I would place on it as well. And by the way, Mac had some football players in the 90s that also played baseball. So it's not uncommon. He likes multiple sport athletes anyway. They love recruiting basketball players and baseball players that also play football because they're skilled and they're more capable of changing positions once they get to school because of the well-roundedness of them as athletes. That's the class of 2022 running back targets. As we get closer to the dead period ending, we're going to focus on those 4 kids in June. Of course, recruiting is fluid, so there might be other names that become a higher priority that we will talk about down the road. But right now, we think this is the foursome that you guys, you Carolina fans that are paying attention to this or just recruiting bus, should go ahead and focus on. And certainly, Miss King will have her finger on the pulse of all 4 of these kids and the future of the running back room. She's Deana King. I'm Andrew Jones. Don't forget to go to TarGetIllustrated.com. Just $8.33 a month, and you can have everything, access to everything that we do on our site. Thanks for stopping by.